My name is Khaled Zaky. I'm a senior product manager at AWS. And today I'm thrilled to discuss an exciting topic with you all regarding considerations for replacing password-only authentication with passkeys. So today we'll delve into why this shift is not only beneficial, but also necessary for modern businesses. But first, I'll start as a brief introduction. I currently oversee our identity products here at AWS, which covers things specifically like user authentication, sign-in portals into AWS, and multi-factor authentication. I'm passionate about knowledge sharing, which led me to also teach a product management course outside of my professional work as well. And I like to maintain a balanced lifestyle, enjoying activities like road cycling, taekwondo, and all that sort of stuff. So I could reserve some of that for questions. Anyways, focus on the topic. I'm truly excited to be here today to discuss the important topic of passkeys and its potential to transform your approach for authentication in your enterprise. Right. So before we dive in, let's take a moment to understand what we will be discussing today. And this overview will serve as a roadmap for our journey through the important shift in enterprise security. So first, we will explore the ongoing issues with password-only authentication, discuss why is it a long-standing method which is no longer adequate in our evolving digital landscape. We'll also touch upon the vulnerabilities that had led to increasing number of data breaches. Next, we'll introduce the concept of passkeys, and we'll talk why is it, and talk about why there is an improvement over traditional passwords and even over some of the traditional multi-factor authentication solutions that are out there. And we'll discuss the benefits that passkeys offer over that and quantum leap in security and user experience. And we'll give you a glimpse into the user experience with passkeys. So we'll share some of that and we'll walk you through the registration process and demonstrate what signing in looks like and how passkeys could be managed from that standpoint. So our discussion then will shift into the adoption considerations, which I feel like it will be the important piece of this, outlining the practical factors of why businesses need to consider or what businesses need to consider when migrating from passwords to passkeys and outline crucial steps to take there. And then we'll wrap up with a conclusion. And if we've got time, also entertain a few Q&A questions. All right, so let's get started. Let's begin by understanding the context of our discussion today. So focusing the role and limitations of passwords for decades have been our primary method for proving our identity online. They act as gatekeepers to our personal, professional, and also some cases financial information. However, the reliability of passwords has really eroded over time. So today's cyber criminals have refined their skills and devised effective methods to guess, steal, or obtain passwords through various forms of cyber attacks. The most common being data breaches, credential stuffing attacks, for example, that a lot of us are susceptible to receive every day. So, for example, traditional multi-factor mechanisms such as one-time passwords, for example, or passcodes, also known as OTPs, are used to reduce the risk of that. However, they have some limitations, but also some adoption barriers that come with. Just to quantify things, and how passwords really led to breaches. So according to some recent research from FIDO Alliance, passwords are implicated in over about 80% of data breaches, a staggering figure, and aligns with numbers kind of you've seen in previous presentations today. But what's also more concerning is the human behavior of password reuse. So around 51% of passwords are reused, which actually magnifies the problem surface area and the vulnerability. And interestingly, despite being aware of the security concerns, a surprising 59% of consumers still rely solely on passwords for either their work computers or account authentication, their personal lives. This is really where passkeys or where we see passkeys come in. So we at the FIDO Alliance believe that passkeys are the future of authentication, providing a more secure, more user-friendly, and scalable solution. But really, what are passkeys and how they're different from usual passwords or even one-time passcodes? That is something I would like to kind of explore in our next section. So as we navigate our increasingly digital world, it's clear that we need stronger, more user-friendly, and scalable method of authentication. this is precisely what passkeys is offer and address. So what are passkeys and why they're superior to traditional passwords? Um, Passkeys are essentially cryptographic keys that are used for authentication, similar to your physical key that you use to open a door, but more for digital access. They utilize on device biometrics or PINs for authentication, providing a seamless user experience. Um, so first thing is actually improve the user experience. So passkeys simplify the authentication process. So instead of think of remembering, managing numerous passwords, users can really authenticate themselves using the biometric on their device or their device PIN, which is a consistent experience across all devices that's enabled by passkey synchronization, or at least in the case of synced passkeys, as you've heard earlier, the differences. Um, Reduced cost of credential loss is a second benefit. So password loss or compromise could lead to significant financial, reputational damages to your enterprise and even for customers. Passkeys mitigate these risks by relying on biometric or PIN-based authentication. There's the enhanced security factor as well. So unlike passwords specifically, passkeys are resistant to phishing attacks and the credential stuffing attacks, which contributed to staggering figures that we presented earlier, because they're built on the FIDO authentication standards, providing that strong phishing resistance against threats. The fourth thing, which is the newly added benefit of passkeys, is the scalability and the credential recovery benefits. So in the case of synced passkeys, it allows the users to easily, quickly, and sign in to a new device they own, making an excellent user experience and enabling for recovery of credentials if devices are replaced. Uh, Finally, device-bound passkeys. So unlike synced passkeys, device-bound passkeys are tied to a specific security key. These offer another or additional layer of security as they can be used on multiple devices. So there's that being portable, movable across devices, allowing for cross-device portability, but also the added benefits to meet sometimes higher security assurance like AAL level 3, for example, as stated earlier by other speakers. All these points contribute to the fact that passkeys offer a comprehensive solution for secure and efficient authentication. So it kind of balances both. They're more effective, safer, and user-friendly than passwords and some of the traditional MFA methods. But it doesn't don't just take my word for it. I'd just like to explore some of how does that look like from a user perspective. So moving on. So having heard about the benefits or some of the strength of passkeys that I shared with you earlier, I wanted to turn your attention to the user experience. After all, some of the most secure systems are really worthless if it's complicated and makes it difficult for people to effectively use it. And earlier, the FIDO Alliance User Experience Working Group has developed detailed guidelines to ensure the process of using passkeys is intuitive and straightforward. And there's published resources on that as well on the FIDO Alliance website that we could refer to as well when it comes to the passkey user experience. Today, we'll take a high-level look at the passkey registration and sign-in process. So what is presented here on the screen is the registration process, and it begins much like any other sign-in procedure or sign-up procedure. The user is prompted to provide an email or username along with their traditional password. And then after this, the user is prompted to set up their passkey by providing an on-device biometric or PIN to authenticate. This could be their fingerprint or facial recognition or that device-specific PIN. So it's as simple as that. And then thirdly, when signing in with the passkeys, when the user experience is equally smooth. The user selects their email or username, available passkeys will be shown in the passkey autofill user interface, much like an autofill function for password, but far more secure, of course. The user then authenticates themselves using previously set biometric or on their device. One of the main benefits here is at passkeys is the adaptability across devices. So passkeys or synced passkeys that specifically are synced across the passkey provider, Cloud Fabric, across user devices. And that is really to address the convenience and ease of use and ensuring that users always have access to their synced passkeys wherever they go or on the device that they're on. Um, Now that we've seen what passkeys offer, whether it's a simplified or secure user experience, I just wanted to take a moment and shift your focus into adoption considerations for enterprises. So after all, like shifting from passwords to passkeys, it will require planning and strategic implementation, which we'll explore in our next segment of this presentation. So it's easy to see the benefits of passkeys, whether it's from a user perspective or benefits gained from just adopting passkeys. But as an enterprise, it's crucial to approach this transition from traditional passwords to passkeys with a very strategic mindset. So how do we proceed with the adoption of passkeys within an enterprise? I've got three key things I would like to share with you. One is the relying party support. Of course, like Tom's presentation went much deeper into the topic of relying party considerations. But what I wanted to focus on, at least like for the password-only use cases, is one of the first steps toward adopting passkeys is to ascertain whether your relying party or your specific RP supports passkeys. Relying parties, of course, are systems and services that you are dependent on for authentication. So given that passkeys are relatively new, not all systems support them as of yet. So therefore, it's essential to start identifying where you've got passkey support and how can you support it within your ecosystem. The second point is really about device management. So once you've identified a set of targeted applications or identity provider, it's important to identify who are the users for those applications, what are these applications, and what are the device types you use, and work backwards to understand kind of the customer user device preference and key and kind of as it would influence your decision to choosing kind of the right passkey solution for your consumers. Finally, registration and recovery. To ensure smooth transition to passkeys, you would need to have a clear path for how you register, how you recover them. This includes self-provisioning of those passkeys if you would allow that, a system of restoring those credentials from the passkey provider, all these things that you would have to consider as you plan it out. Finally, adoption for those passkeys at an enterprise level is not merely about replacing one system with another. It requires careful understanding of your organization's specific needs, regulatory compliance, policies, and the implications of passkey solutions into how it will get rolled out into your enterprise. So I think kind of these considerations need to be roadmapped as a business for a passkey adoption and having a strategic plan to carefully implement that. And now that we've outlined some of these considerations, I wanted to kind of conclude this by summarizing passkeys as a future-focused approach to secure your authentication. So throughout this session, we've made a compelling case for replacing password-only authentication with passkeys. So we presented a solution that offers improved security over passwords, convenience, and scalability when compared with other methods. In the cybersecurity landscape, the cost of complacency can be incredibly really high. Traditional passwords, though common, are a significant weak link susceptible to various forms of cyber attacks, such as whether that could be credential stuffing, phishing attacks, or so on, which are very common in today's world. And as we've discussed, passkeys represent an innovative and a viable alternative built on the robust FIDO authentication standards that significantly reduce these vulnerabilities. We've talked about how kind of that seamless user experience, making authentication quick and easy across various user devices. But also we've mentioned that switch to passkeys is not a one-size-fits-all. It requires that careful thought planning to identify the most suitable use cases, suitable users, device preferences, regulatory compliance, and so on, understanding device compatibility and the needs and behaviors of your users, of course. So while we do encourage enterprises to consider making a switch to passkeys, it's essential to undertake that thorough analysis of your organization's needs, to go through your technical requirements and the suitability analysis for your specific use cases. And for additional deployment patterns, and even if you've got higher assurance use cases beyond password only, I would highly recommend also referring to the other white paper in the series that we've launched. So finally, as we conclude, I hope this presentation shed some light on the potential of passkeys as a more secure and efficient alternative to passwords, and encourage you to consider adopting passkeys in your own organizations. So what's next? So you've heard about the risks associated with passwords. You've learned about the benefits of passkeys. You've got some considerations to weigh in about adoption. At this point, you might be asking, like, so how can I really get started? So here's what I suggest. One, understand your needs. Start by understanding your organization, your specific authentication needs and challenges, and help determine how passkeys will be the right fit for you. You might find that not all use cases in your organization are suitable for passkey only implementation, and that's okay. Get hands-on. So get hands-on with passkeys. Look for passkey icon on websites and applications that do support it. Try it for authentication. This will give you a sense of the user experience that passkeys do offer. I think also reaching out. So reach out to vendors who offer passkey solutions, discuss your needs as an organization, your requirements with them, some of the either compliance or regulatory challenges that you might be facing, or internal security policies that you need to adapt to, and see what their solutions could offer to fit your organization's authentication landscape. But also finally exploring the FIDO Alliance resources. So for more information about passkeys or FIDO Alliance, there's the FIDO Alliance website. They have an abundance of resources, also some linked here today, that can help you understand the technology better and guide you through your journey towards authentication. So it's not really a sprint, it's a marathon. It requires careful planning and willingness. And we believe in the potential of passkeys to change how users authenticate. And I believe we're here to support you on this journey. So thank you for your time today. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and questions.
We do have time for some questions, and thank you so much for that presentation. I want to just start off by saying that I know that we do get a lot of questions of like, really, there's enterprises that are still only using passwords still, and there are. I mean, there's a stat that Microsoft talks about a little. I can't say what it is because I guess it's sort of secret, but it's a big number of organizations that don't have any type of MFA turned on. And I think that it's, again, like these things are not at the fault of the folks in charge there, but it's, you've got disparate systems. You've got maybe folks that are, in different places. There's a lot of factors as to why folks don't have MFA, turned on, which I think is why passkeys could present a great solution, because it's really just password replacement, right? So that was my little spiel ahead of what I'm going to ask you. So just like from like a tactical perspective, like what do you, as an enterprise, like what do you actually need to roll something like this from like a device or server perspective? Like what things need to be like part of that in order to get started from actually implement this?
Yeah, I think there's a mix of three elements here, which is kind of basically the first one that goes back to your existing systems, identity providers, and relying party support. So, and it might very well be like some enterprises are stuck in a password only realm because that's all they could support in their internal systems, being legacy, don't support modern authentication methods and all that sort of stuff. So it might be time to kind of take that careful analysis to revise and review that. And I think that's kind of the first step. The second element to that is actually understanding kind of the different devices in your ecosystem, like how basically what applications are out there, what devices that users use. There's a variety of passkey providers and are out there. Some are basically based on the device. Some are could be password managers or others, or some could be device bound. So I think understanding kind of what is the user's device preferences, what other devices that we have today in the ecosystem that could net out to kind of change in paths, change in adoption, cost incurred, and so on. So that's a bit of the analysis. Last is actually the process. So as much as there's kind of systems, there's devices, there's also the processes of how those passkeys will be onboarded, how will they be recovered. There are that kind of help desk processes that need to be adjusted or reviewed to adjust to that. These are all the things that kind of, I think, through the careful analysis of users that need to go through, we need to go through. And again, like they might find fits in specific application, fit in certain areas or specific users or device groups. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, and then so doing sort of an analysis of like this is everything that's going on, this is what we have. Then what do you recommend for like, let's say you're like a midsize or like org, do you like reach out to your IDP and say, hey, I'm looking at doing this, can you support this? Or like who are the folks? Because it strikes me that there's going to be help needed from like other stakeholders. How
Yeah.
do you recommend, the next steps and who to sort of talk to in order to get something rolling?
Yeah, some of it is actually like I think it starts really by kind of contacting, reaching out to those vendors. Like some have already made announcements around their passkey plans, and some have got already offerings out there. So actually engaging with those vendors and doing kind of that suitability analysis, but also reaching out to your existing vendors and inquire about their plans to move on to passkey-based solution and how does that look like and how would it fit into their systems. I think kind of that's the first step. The second is understanding really getting hands-on with it, running kind of some of that proof of context or proof of concept solutions or proof of value solutions to understand kind of how Passkey, if we applied in certain applications or certain user groups, how would that look like? What benefits, and start realizing the benefits of far more secure authentication in some of those areas, and if it delivers the value and the benefit that we're after. So I think reaching out, getting hands-on is, I think, is the key things that I would start with.
Yeah. And the other point I just wanted to make before we wrap is that we're starting to see, and this is like sort of like what we talked about earlier for that, like convincing the stakeholders that need to be convinced within the organization that this is the right way to go. We are starting to get like early data from relying parties that have done this, like Google, for example. I mean, there's going to be some real data to be able to present, to your internal stakeholders to say, these are the real benefits. And it's not just account takeover prevention, but it's actually like increased productivity and revenues and things like that. So we are definitely going to be making sure that we compile all that data and make it all available to you all, because that's a big part of it too. Um,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
I agree. And I agree.
Yeah,
Again, like it's all a benefit risk analysis, right? So I feel like
right.
today, living in a password only world, there's data, there's numbers, there's already like recent news and headlines out there highlight kind of some of the risk element there. And then I think kind of turning your head around looking for alternatives such as Passkey, which is phishing resistant strong authentication, could be very well suitable for use cases as such.
Yeah, totally. And I really appreciate this session. For those folks that are, moving from a password only environment, I hope this was really helpful, but I think it was a really helpful, just sort of foundational talk for any organization. In just a moment, so thank you so much, Khaled. And in a moment, we're going to shift to a presentation regarding those that have enabled some sort of legacy MFA, specifically SMS OTPs, and how to start your migration considerations and migration considerations as well. So we're going to shift to that in just a moment. Be right back.